Hello, everyone.
Hey, Joy.
Oh yeah, I should change my name probably. He's at the board meeting, so I'm
Uh,
with
Are
Joy.
you being an imposter?
At the moment, yes. All right, I'm switched back. Cool.
I have not followed proper protocol and reached out and thanked you and Nicole again, but thank you both very, very, very much.
Of course. No, happy to present. That was a good time.
Um, I'll tell you one thing, that map where y'all showed June of last year compared to June of this year, that's a very impactful image.
Yeah, no, it's that map is just makes a big statement.
It
Absolutely.
does. It really does.
Let me see. We should have some more people coming in shortly, but I'll get started at like 101, 102 maybe. There you go. Is my screen sharing properly?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Yeah, about a week ago, this image would have been just like orange.
Actually, Kurt says it's really bad in Wisconsin today.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess
And
the
I was
wind
like,
conditions.
it shocked me because he's up north compared to where we are, and it was really bad for us last week. So,
Yeah, I don't know. That's got to be some type of wind change or something.
yeah.
I'll give folks another minute. Hello, everyone. Just joined. All right. Well, I'll kick things off. Oh, nope. Didn't want to go through the slides yet, but welcome to the June edition of AOPA's Advocacy and Action webinar. For those who I have not met, my name is Sam Miller. I'm AOPA's State and Federal Advocacy Manager. And today I kind of wanted to talk about the policy forum that we recently hosted about a month ago to kind of tell you about kind of what happened, why we were there, why we were talking to legislators, and kind of the path forward for the legislation that AOPA is putting forth in the 118th Congress. So I'll kind of start with the overall objective of our um, meetings this past month. So we wanted to generate support for AOPA's kind of flagship legislation. This is the Medicare O&P Patient-Centered Care Act. And to do that, we wanted to meet with members of Congress, tell them about the bill, and hopefully, once the bill is introduced, we'll have a group of legislators who already know about the legislation and will be able to provide kind of co-sponsorship and support once it's introduced and kind of move it along through the legislative process. So this is a little bit about the bill. It's slightly altered from the previous version in the 117th Congress. Now that the Congress has kind of carried over after the midterms, you have to kind of reintroduce legislation every time. So it's kind of an every 2-year thing, much like the midterms. But there are 3 total provisions. The first 2 are carryovers from last session's bill. And the third provision is actually a new one that we're pretty excited about. So the first provision is a prohibition of drop shipping for custom orthoses. And this is essentially a fraud prevention provision. We've seen a lot of bad actors in the Medicare space who are drop shipping orthoses to folks that don't know how to use them or fit them properly. And those kind of custom devices should not be provided without the necessary clinical care. So by preventing that, we're both helping patients get the care they need and preventing kind of injury, but also reducing fraud, waste, and abuse in the Medicare system. I believe in 2019, there was a $1.9 billion bust of these bad actors. That was called Operation Brace Yourself, which was I believe it was an FBI investigation. They like to have their quippy names, for operations and things like that. But that number alone, and that's just one operation. They kind of have a couple of these coming out every year where they're busting multi-million-dollar issues of fraud. And by preventing those, we're hoping to save the Medicare program money. And we're hoping that this provision will kind of offset the possible costs of the next 2 provisions. The second provision, it's an exemption for practitioners from requiring a competitive bidding license to provide off-the-shelf orthoses. And essentially, this is in situations where you're working with a patient who uses a prosthesis, but they need an off-the-shelf orthosis to stabilize the other side of their body. And if the practitioner that's providing the prosthesis doesn't have a competitive bidding license, then that patient would have to go kind of to another location that does have a license in order to receive that OTS orthosis. And that really is just an extra unnecessary barrier to care that makes it harder for patients to get what they need. This is we're hoping that this will reduce those barriers and just allow kind of steps to be removed from the process. And this exemption is already in place for occupational therapists and physical therapists. So it's pretty much a common sense provision that we believe will be really helpful going forward. And then the third provision, which is a new one for AOPA for this Congress, is a removal of reasonable useful lifetime restrictions for custom orthoses. And this is essentially, right now, orthoses have a 3 to 5 year kind of period where they are not allowed to be replaced, typically. And in this situation, by removing these restrictions, with proper documentation, of course, practitioners will be able to provide custom orthoses for situations where a patient's physical changes to their body may necessitate a new device, or in situations where there's wear and tear and things of that nature. And one of the examples is if a patient goes to a hospital or an ER for an acute issue and they get kind of an ankle boot, then that may be constituting their orthotic benefit. And so they wouldn't be able to go to a practitioner and get a more focused, a more specialized custom orthosis to treat that condition if it's more chronic and ongoing after that. And that's, again, just a patient protection on barriers to care issue that we're looking to change with this legislation. And again, this reasonable useful lifetime exemption is also on the books for prostheses. So it's pretty much kind of moving that towards orthoses as well. And this may have a cost to the Medicare system, but we're pretty confident that the first provision and the prohibition of drop shipping will kind of offset that, so that it's revenue neutral, hopefully. The ideal situation would be it saves the Medicare program money in kind of the totality. But if it's a smaller cost, then that's always a good thing for legislators to hear. So I have some pictures from the day of legislative meetings, and I can get into I'm going to get into the statistics of the meetings themselves, but this kind of goes to show that we were all over the Capitol. It's really cool to be walking around kind of the Capitol complex and just seeing everybody walking through the halls. And this year there weren't as many restrictions that were related to the pandemic or for security reasons. So essentially you could go through a metal detector and kind of freely walk the halls, which is always kind of cool. I think it's a good time, and you could go to the cafeteria, grab some steak and shake or something like that if you wanted. But this was really great to see everybody out in full force. So I have some kind of a map here that shows the total states that were represented at this year's policy forum. I believe it was around 30 states represented, and there were 110-ish total attendees. So we really had people, from each region of the country and the majority of the states, which is really helpful in getting the word out and making sure that the O&P field is having its voice heard in as many congressional offices as possible. I can also get into some kind of statistics about the number of meetings we had. We had 138 total meetings. That's over a quarter of Congress. In terms of the House, we met with 79 representatives and their staff. That's about a fifth of the House of Representatives. And then we can break it down further into the two committees that the bill will be heard in the House. So those are Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means. Now, we've met with about a third of the Energy and Commerce Committee and about a fifth of the Ways and Means Committee. And that's going to be really helpful because those co-sponsors kind of elevate a bill even further, since they'll be the ones who will be voting to pass the bill out of committee. And so getting their kind of go ahead on this legislation is going to be very important going forward. And having that kind of relationship with staffers and members of Congress going into the bill being introduced is going to be a big boon for our efforts. And then if you go to the Senate side, we had 59 total Senate meetings, which is almost 2/3 of the chamber. And in terms of committees, we'll be heard in the Senate Finance Committee. We met with, again, the same percentage, which is coincidentally very interesting, 59% of the Senate Finance Committee. And again, that's going to be very, very, very helpful when if we can have a few co-sponsorships going into a Finance Committee hearing, those folks will be able to kind of speak up and voice their support for the bill, which will hopefully help propel it out of committee and onto the chamber floor. So I can kind of go into the bill status now that we've talked about the bill, kind of what happened that day, and kind of show where we're going to go from here. So in the House, we have Representative G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania. He's the introducing sponsor of the bill. He's the one who's going to be kind of putting it out into Congress. The original co-sponsors, who are the folks who kind of put their name on the bill before it's introduced. There are Brett Guthrie of Kentucky, Angie Craig from Minnesota, and Mike Thompson from California. So two of these members, Guthrie and Thompson, were on last year's bill. This year, we have Angie Craig because Representative G.K. Butterfield of North Carolina recently retired. So we had to kind of find a new original co-sponsor, and Angie Craig's staff has been really interested in working with us. So that's very helpful for her to be on it too. And so in the House, we're working with G.T. Thompson's office and Legislative Council to introduce the bill. It's not quite ready yet, but it should be in the next week or two, actually. So hopefully we'll have some good news for y'all next week or the week after that. And Legislative Council, they pretty much look at pieces of legislation in order to ensure that the bill language makes sense with the laws that are already on the books, and that the bill kind of does what it's supposed to do, or that it follows its own legislative intent. In the Senate, we have Mark Warner from Virginia introducing the bill, and we have a few original co-sponsors that we're working with at the moment. Senator Steve Daines of Montana is confirmed. He did the same in the last Congress, and he works really closely with us a lot of the time to forward this legislation. And then we have a few folks that we're looking at as well. These are Senators Duckworth, Cassidy, Cornyn, Grassley, and Thune. And the first four of these senators were original co-sponsors in the last Congress's version of the bill. And John Thune actually added his co-sponsorship shortly after that. So we're hoping that he can kind of upgrade his sponsorship from regular co-sponsor to kind of original co-sponsor. And the Senate bill, it's a little bit behind on the timeline from the House bill. They're currently, Warner's office is reviewing the bill. It hasn't yet been submitted to Legislative Council, but we're really hopeful that the House introduction in the next week or two will kind of help to move them forward and kind of push things along. But we'll see how that goes, and we're hoping to have them introduced pretty closely to each other so we can kind of get the word out. And speaking of which, I can kind of talk about where we're going in the future for this bill. So once it is introduced, we're going to be asking the folks that were able to attend the policy forum to reach out to the staffers that they met with to let them know that the bill has a number. And it may, at first it was kind of disappointing that we didn't have a bill number in time for the policy forum, but it's actually been kind of helpful in the sense that we were able to get our faces in front of legislators, let them know about OMP and the bill itself. And then now that the bill is introduced, we kind of have an opportunity for follow-up that, you know, furthers that relationship and allows people to really develop a relationship with their legislator, with staffers that will hopefully help in the future for this bill and for any other legislative priorities that may come along for AOPA. We'll also be running a grassroots letter writing campaign through our Capital Canary software once the bill's introduced. This will allow people to put in their kind of home address, which will automatically kind of target their legislators, their representative and both their senators, and they'll be able to send a letter essentially asking them to co-sponsor the bill for those whose legislators have not yet done so. But it'll also, if your legislator is a co-sponsor or is a sponsor, it'll send a different note that basically says, you know, thank you for your support. We really appreciate you. And we're hoping that this platform will allow us to really show strength in numbers to get, you know, if you get thousands of people writing letters in support of a bill, it's hard not to listen to that, and it's hard not to pay attention. And so that, combined with the more personal follow-up that we're going to have from policy forum attendees, plus AOPA's own kind of internal advocacy and lobbying efforts, those three will kind of combine to lead to more co-sponsorships and hopefully movement on the bill. And so the third kind of follow-up opportunity that we have is kind of towards the National Assembly. We want to kind of center it around when the whole OMP field kind of comes together. We'd like to have folks follow up again from the policy forum to thank staffers for their co-sponsorship if they've done that, or to kind of make an additional request to co-sponsorship if they haven't yet done so. And that's gonna kind of, again, keep the bill fresh in staffers' minds. I think everyone knows that the Hill has so many things going on all the time. They're super busy. I don't know how they do it personally, but you know, if you keep kind of, I don't know if the right word is pestering, because that has a negative connotation, but if you keep following up, you keep making sure that they have the bill in the back of their mind, then that does help move things along sometimes. And so that's kind of the recap of what we did at the policy forum, how it went, where the bill's at, and where it's going. And I have my email right here. if you'd like to kind of follow up with some questions, or if you'd like to get involved in that that advocacy effort on the federal level. Oh, let me stop my share. All right. Does anybody have any kind of questions or comments about the policy forum? Definitely happy to answer those for y'all.
Hey Sam, this is Kate from Hanger. Is the letter writing campaign, is it live now, or should we be on the lookout for a link?
So it's not live yet, only because we don't quite have a bill number yet. But once the bill is introduced, we'll definitely be sending out kind of communications to our membership to let them know that they should be taking action.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Sam, this is Jane Webster. Is there a list of all the co-sponsors? So, for example, if we met people, from the state of Maryland, how do we know, has anybody moved forward with co-sponsoring?
So co-sponsors are going to be coming in kind of after the bill's introduced.
Okay.
But, you can always, once it is introduced, it kind of takes a couple days for the system to kind of recognize that it's happened and for it to get into the system. But you can go to congress.gov and search for it, and you'll be able to find the bill based on the number that it is assigned, and you can see all the co-sponsors in a list there once we start adding them. So which will hopefully be soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, well, hearing none, I can move on to our Advocate of the Month award. This month, I would like to award that to Ryan Schutzel. Thank you so much for attending the policy forum, getting in all those Illinois meetings. I know we had quite a few on the schedule, but we really appreciate your support, and we're hoping to have some good news for you in the next couple of weeks for you to reach out to the members that you did meet with. And same goes for everybody who was able to make the policy forum this past month. And again, if anybody doesn't quite remember who their staffers were, I have all of those in our records, so I can send those to you just in case you need a refresher on who you met with and when. But yeah, Ryan, we'll be sending you your kind of award prize gift by email shortly. So we really appreciate you for coming out this past month.
Awesome. Thanks so much for all your help, Sam. And yeah, we enjoyed it. We had a good time for Team Illinois.
Awesome. Yeah, no, really glad to hear it. It's a good time. It's a little chaotic, but I always enjoy it. All right, everybody. Well, that was Advocacy in Action for this month. Hope to see y'all at the July edition. I believe that'll be on July 20th. Yep, July 20th. Awesome. Well, hope you all have a great day, and I will see you soon, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.